Welcome back to our journey through the Bible. Have you ever had to choose between doing what's right and doing what's easy? Our story takes place in ancient Babylon, one of the most powerful empires the world had ever seen. King Darius sat on the throne. King Darius came up with a plan to rule a massive kingdom. He appointed 120 princes to govern different parts of his empire, and over them he placed 3 presidents to oversee everything. One of those presidents was a man named Daniel. He wasn't a Babylonian. He was from Judah. Daniel had gained a reputation for his integrity. He was unlike the other officials who schemed, lied, and took bribes. Daniel was honest, wise, trustworthy, and had an excellent spirit. King Darius noticed this and put Daniel in charge of the entire kingdom. This created jealousy with other presidents and princes. They wanted the power and influence and didn't want to report to Daniel. They came up with a scheme to find something wrong with Daniel. They tried to dig up a scandal or a crime. They investigated his finances, examined his decisions, and watched him constantly. They could not find any faults with Daniel. His work was flawless, and he was very faithful to God. Daniel never compromised on his faith in God. These wicked men went to King Darius with a lie, a proposal. Bowing at the king's feet, they requested the king make a 30-day law that the entire kingdom will only pray to the king and no other god. Anyone who breaks this law should be thrown into the den of lions. So without thinking, he signed the decree. According to the law of the Medes and Persians, once the king signed something, it could never be changed, not even by the king himself. The trap was set. When Daniel heard about this new law, he had a choice to make. He could pray secretly in his heart, where no one could see, or he could wait for the law to expire before praying again. Daniel knew his relationship with God wasn't something he could hide or compromise. It was the foundation of his entire life. Daniel didn't change, just like he always had. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he had always done, being faithful to the God who had been faithful to him for years. Daniel had always trusted God. Daniel's enemies saw him praying by his open window. They rushed to King Darius. Daniel, one of the captives from Judah, has ignored your law. He prays 3 times a day to his God. King Darius was greatly distressed when he heard this. He realized he had been tricked by these wicked men. King Darius knew the law was the law and there was nothing he could do. He was furious. He had to give the order. Seize Daniel and drop him in the lion's den, a deep pit of hungry lions. The king said something remarkable. May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you. Even the king hoped that Daniel's God would save him. They threw Daniel into the den, and a large stone was rolled over the opening. Daniel was in the darkness with the lions. The king paced in the palace until dawn. As dawn broke, the king rushed to the lion's den. The king shouted down in the lion's den, Daniel, has your God whom you serve delivered you from the other lions? From the pit Daniel replied, God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me. He immediately commanded his servants to pull Daniel up out of the den. Closer examination of Daniel, he had trusted in God and was not harmed. King Darius was furious at the men who had tricked him. He had them arrested, along with their families, and threw them into the same lion's den. They were immediately overpowered and eaten. This shows us God had miraculously protected Daniel. He delivers and rescues. He works wonders. Daniel continued to prosper for the rest of his days. We've learned from this incredible story, faithfulness to God is worth the risk. It reminds us that the God we serve is greater than any den of lions we might face. Daniel knew his relationship with God was more valuable than his safety, his position, or even his life. This doesn't mean God always shields us from physical harm, but it does mean that when we put him first, we can trust him with the outcome, and our faithfulness can impact others. When Daniel stood firm, an entire empire was introduced to the one true God. When following God costs us something, when it's uncomfortable, when it puts us at a disadvantage, when others are watching, will we stay faithful? Thank you so much for watching. If this story encouraged you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. We'll see you next time.